This is Fabiola with Healing Sin Vergüenza. New episodes every 2 weeks. Hi, this is Fabiola.
Hi, this is Ashley.
And this is Healing Sin Vergüenza. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Danny. Today we're interviewing Danny Martinez. How are you? Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Danny.
Yeah, I'm currently a senior at Pepperdine University. I study psychology, and for the past 2 years, I've been running a business. It's called an SMMA, a social media marketing agency, for therapists. It wasn't always that way. I actually started with real estate agents, which are just awful to talk to. Not if any of y'all are real estate agents, but and so I went back to the drawing board. I was like, maybe let's do small businesses. But a lot of these mom and pop shops have been running way before I was born, and they don't really need me. So I was back to the drawing board, and I was like, who can I help that I actually can relate to? And my major's psychology. I've been to a couple conferences for psychology. I met a lot of therapists, and I was like, let's try this out. Like, let's try and help therapists out. And I chose that the beginning about a year ago, and it's been going very well. And I kind of haven't looked back since. Besides business stuff, I'm from Texas. My family's from Texas. My dad is originally from the United States, but the rest of his family is from Mexico. And then my mother is an immigrant from Costa Rica, and they both met at college.
Wow. How was it growing up? And so your dad's first generation Mexican American, correct?
Yeah, so the way that kind of worked was he is the youngest of five kids, a big family. And so all of his entire family is born in Mexico. But whenever my grandma was pregnant with my dad, she crossed the border, had my dad in Texas, and then moved back and raised him in Mexico for 13 years. But he was a United States citizen because he was born in the United States.
Yeah.
Because my grandmother knew, even like before she had my dad, that she wanted to move to the U.S. And so 13 years later, they made the move. They worked very hard to get the right documentation, and now every single one of them are United States citizens. So they are in South Texas, probably like 30 minutes from the border, but we're about 10 minutes north of that in Dallas, Fort Worth. It's the term is DFW, Dallas, Fort Worth. So we're kind of in that area, close enough to drive to them for holidays. On my mom's side, it's a bit harder to fly for holidays, stuff like that. But yeah, it's interesting because my dad is first generation, right? And so having to grow up in this, it's kind of like a conflicting thing, because you have, on one side, it's the American culture. Things have been done the same way for a super long time. And there's, from Hispanic culture, it's very like strong moral values. It's like, I think all the ladies in my life are very strong women. And my mom was a strong lady. My grandmother was an attorney. Like, her grandmother came from France to Costa Rica. Like, it was a lot. And it's just a lineage of like very strong morals, very strong foundation. In the U.S., especially in some parts of Texas, it's a little looser. And I know here in California, people think like Texas, conservative, like red state. It's not. It's like any other place. It feels just like a place you have grown up. Like, here feels like home. Texas feels like home. You have people all over the spectrum and all sorts of beliefs. So it's just finding the balance of like, a big thing was, can I spend the night at my friend's house? Like, my mom always
Definitely
no.
no.
Never. Yeah.
That is not. Why'd you even ask?
Exactly. But you can kind of slowly warm them up. I'm the oldest son, so my younger brother doesn't have to deal with any of that stuff. So I was kind of the trial and error kid, and I think it's been very good. I think you mature way quicker if you have to deal with two cultures colliding, I think. there's a lot that goes into maturity, of course, so it's not just like one thing. But to the kids that grew up speaking different languages, or that grew up having to act different places and differently in different places, it's just it's night and day. To see some people that are just super sheltered, there's a little bit more perspective that goes into it, I would say.
Amazing.
So growing up, you said your dad is Mexican, your mom is Costa Rican. Did you see any of those cultural differences growing up? Anything that you can point out? Because I'm Mexican, and both my parents are Mexican. So, I didn't. How was your experience?
Much the same.
Yeah. The first thing that came to mind, and this is kind of just a joke, but chingo just means naked in Costa Rica. It doesn't mean anything else. Like, it doesn't mean...
It just means naked.
It just means naked. It doesn't mean anything else. And that was the biggest, like, shock, because my mom would use that to say, like, naked, and my dad would be like, don't say it. There's a little more... There's a bit more of a country pride to Costa Rica, because they think that they're superior to everybody. Yeah. They think they're superior, like the best country in Central America. And there's like a pride to Mexicans being like, we are countrymen, we are vaqueros, we are like strong people. We know how to deal with adversity. And like a lot of the people from Mexico that I know today are like very hardworking, and they attribute like at least 50% to being Mexican. If you ask a Mexican where they get their strength, they're like, because I'm Mexican.
That is so
true.
But Costa Ricans are a little more like, the big insult in Costa Rica is uneducated. If you call someone uneducated, it's like a big deal. They don't have a military, and they pour all of that funding into the education system. And so like being able to look at different classes, it's not like, oh, poor people, rich people. It's like uneducated, educated. Which is like a super big shift from here in the US, where like now everyone my age is like, you don't even need to go to college. Like, but in Costa Rica, if you don't go to college, you might as well just be an outcast. Like, why would you choose to be uneducated? So I'd say those are some of like the biggest cultural differences between Mexico and Costa Rica, at least.
Danny, what is your favorite Mexican dish and your favorite Costa Rican dish?
I think Mexico goes straight to tacos. The best tacos I've ever had were in Mexico. They don't even compare.
Where in Mexico?
We went to Monterrey.
Oh, I always wanted to
some al pastor tacos. It doesn't even feel like it's in the right taste palette. It feels like it's from a different universe. In Costa Rica, cooking is done with a lot more color. So like fruits, vegetables, like everything is sweet. They don't use jalapenos. It's not spicy food. It's like rich flavoring in food. You buy the same ingredients here and you make the same exact food and it tastes different. Because everything is like fresh. Yeah. The cows have fresh milk, like, and that's all like that they have. All the fruits were picked that morning, like everything is fresh. But if I had to boil it down to one thing, my grandmother made this mariscado. That's what it was called, where it was like you cook individually all these seafood things, and then you put it into rice with like a whole bunch of vegetables, and everyone picks it up from that. And she would spend all day doing it because clams cook differently from octopus, cook differently from fish, cook differently from, and it takes all day. So
kind of like, what is it? That Spanish dish, paella? Kind of sounds a little similar.
Yeah.
With the rice.
Yeah, I don't know. Having it in Costa Rica, where like the rice feels like it's made out of gold or something, it's just so delicious.
Oh wow, I'm hungry now.
That sounds amazing. So what made you pick a California school since you're originally from Texas?
So my parents' rule was that they would help pay for school if it was Christian, because they met at a Christian school. And I could have gone to any of the Christian schools in Texas, but a lot of them are just like covers for party school, like TCU. TCU is a huge school, and it's just a party school basically from Texas. And so I was looking around. My sister toured Pepperdine whenever I was a sophomore in high school, and I knew on that trip, I was like, I'm coming here. And my mom was like, no way, it's too expensive. It's way too expensive. But I worked really hard. I didn't get in because I had the money to get in. I got in because I did what it took to get the right scholarships. So I don't even know if you know this, but I play trombone. And so I got a music scholarship. I wrote a lot of really good essays. At a like my GPA was fine. My SAT was fine. And so all of it like pushed together, it would have been crazy to say no. Actually, even the first year it was COVID. And so we weren't allowed on campus. And I had so many scholarships that they gave me a reimbursement at the end of each semester. Wow. And that's the only reason I'm still able to go out. Now, unfortunately, tuition has been steadily increasing. Yeah. So I think it's almost like 10 grand more expensive than whenever I first came in, which is ridiculous. But being there, it's just like there's a couple decisions that you have to make that you're just not sure. And sometimes you just rest into it. Like you feel very at peace with a certain decision. And so I just chose to follow my gut. I was like, I'm going to go here because it feels like the right thing to do. And I haven't looked back, and it's been incredible.
Did you want to go to a Christian school, or did you feel forced because your parents made that rule?
I did. I think my mom properly hyped it up as I was growing up. And it's not like it's any worse. I think Pepperdine is ranked like 50 or like 49 in the U.S. And so it was like very competitive either way. But yeah, faith has been a big part of my life, I think. My dad's a pastor. I don't think I actually started believing in anything until like this past 2 years. But I don't think I would have had an opportunity to explore that side of myself if that was something that I didn't even think about. A lot of kids my age, especially from back home that I see, it's like it's not even on their mind. Yeah. When I think stuff like that should be some of the most important questions we ask ourselves in general. But yeah, like I said, no regrets. I haven't looked back since.
And what exactly makes it like a Christian school? Is there anything in specific that are things that you guys can do on campus, or they provide for you guys?
Yeah, so in terms of requirements, they do have like a couple classes that you have to take to just like get a well-rounded like understanding of things. But a lot of people hate those classes anyways. So I would say the main thing is like the opportunity that is actually on campus. So there's going to be people that like, just like in any school, that go crazy and go wild. But there's going to be people that are like serious about exploring what they believe. And you just get way more of those opportunities on a campus that prioritizes that kind of stuff versus like ASU or something like that, you know?
It's like a different level of community and groups of people that you can hang out with.
I think it also like builds a lot of camaraderie. It's weird because like even if you talk to people that have gone to like Christian schools or like Catholic schools or anything like that, like half of them don't believe in anything, you know? And
that's so true.
And it's cool because it's like that's the one choice that you get, right? You get to choose what you believe in. So I'd rather be at a point where I get to experience it and I get to make that decision for myself. I agree with the idea of like, if it's forced on you, it's not a good thing, in general. Like even with, the concept of like love, like the only reason love is real is because it's freely given. If your mom says like, you have to love your brother, you don't want to love your brother anymore. You know? But if you do something because you love someone out of your own choice, that shows that it's real, right? Yeah. So having that opportunity is what makes it real, at least to me.
Yeah. Do you think your mom and your dad really set a good foundation for you?
Yeah, I of course I have to give all glory up, but I feel like they are the biggest testimony in my life for why faith has a standing in general. My dad is like grew up half of his life in the US, but the first half was like in the slums of Mexico, not rich by any means. My grandfather worked in the fields like in Mexico, working for like pennies a day. And my grandmother would stay at home because that's what's, traditional. They had 5 kids, but my dad put his faith into something that he couldn't see. And now he has like a 2-story house in Texas, And I'm not saying that like good things will happen to you, because good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. And that's bound to happen. But you could tell that they weren't raising me based off of what they believed. They were raising me based off of what they knew to be right. I think there are a lot of ways that my dad would have liked me to grown up into that I'm not. And the same thing is true for my mom. But they knew that if they supported me in the right way and allowed me to make my own choices, then they would be real. Just like how love is real if it's freely chosen. But yeah, incredible foundation. I love both my parents very much. I call them all the time to this day. So.
Oh, that's cute.
That's cute. Was it hard adjusting from Texas to California? How hard was it? Because I think LA is predominantly Mexican American.
Mm-hmm.
And so is Texas. I mean, but how was that different?
Yeah, I was talking about this a little earlier as well. People are like a little meaner here. People are, I think, at least in Texas, there's like
Be nice.
there's the like the Southern charm thing, the Southern manners, common courtesy. Like you say, excuse me, thank you, ma'am, sir, like all that kind of stuff.
You don't want to say ma'am here.
Yeah, some of that stuff could get you in trouble here. So it's just about like, and I was saying this earlier as well, it feels like Dallas is like, or like Fort Worth is a group of people. Like those people are from Fort Worth. Those people are from Dallas. But from LA, it's just like a bunch of individual people. And so getting adjusted to like, okay, there's that person and then there's that person. It's not like a big clique of like, but in general, like being able to say like, excuse me and please and thank you. And it just not being like a common thing here was like a bit of a culture shock. But other than that, it's been incredible. Some of my best friends that I've made in my entire life are from California. And so I'm not going to like dig on them too hard. But it's been great. It's just like anything else. There's differences from Texas and Costa Rica. There's differences from Texas and Mexico. There's going to be differences from here and Texas as well. So it's the ability to adapt a little bit.
So you've done some research. Tell us a little bit about your research that
Yes.
you've done.
Yeah. So that comes from Pepperdine. So I had one professor. His name was Tomas Martinez. I don't know. I said one. He was the only Latino psychology professor at Pepperdine. He just retired. He'd been working there for 40 years.
Oh, wow.
So, and what's crazy is he was a mentor to a guy who was a mentor to my father. And so like, I didn't even know this, but apparently my dad knew this other guy who was mentored by Tomas Martinez. So it was like this crazy like loop. Anyways, he needed help with some research stuff. And me and my friend Anthony, who is from El Salvador, we just went to his office and we're like, we'll do whatever. Like we went in. And so little by little, it went from doing like spell checks and stuff like that to like actually doing hands-on research. The whole idea was there's a lot of tests out there, and there's going to continue to be a lot of tests, but how do you test somebody's anxiety? How do you test someone's depression? How do you test like the trauma in a person? Well, there was a new test that came out called the CRIES 8, originally for people in Europe after war to see the state that they were in. Not only that, but the aversion and intrusion scales, which are like how often do bad thoughts come to you without you having any control of it, and how often do you actively suppress them, because things are going to happen regardless, but if you're actively pushing them away, is like a big tell for at least therapists, which is super helpful, right? Like how resistant is this person going to be whenever I talk to them? And so we used the biggest tests that are used to test anxiety, the biggest test for depression, the biggest test for trauma, and we paired it up with our test as well, the CRIES 8. And we found that it works really well. First off, there's criteria on validity, which just means like it matches up, like everything makes sense. But something that we found that wasn't necessarily shown in the big tests was we split it up into basically four groups. The gender and age. So you have boys and girls, and then men and women. And so if you're looking at just the numbers from all the big tests, you see women score higher on anxiety, depression, trauma. girls and women. So it looks like it's a closed deal. It's a done like a sealed case. But with our test that we used, we saw that it looks very similar for the intrusion, like how often these thoughts come into you. Women tend to have more, but for the suppression side of everything, men have way more. They're pushing way more of these thoughts down. And so the people that we used to do the scale was like Latino people from the inner city that have to deal with a lot of like gang violence in general. And so like boys and girls are pretty close, but then something happens along their development, and now they just don't want to talk about anything. And so our further research is going to be like, when does that happen? Why does that happen? Yeah. But for now, we have like very clear evidence that like machismo basically is real. That people don't want to talk about like traumatic stuff. I saw this meme. It was like, only Latinos will give you the most heart-wrenching like story and then say pero todo bien, gracias a Dios. Like they'll just tell you like the worst story, the most depressing story, and be like, but it's all good. And it's like, no, like let's dig into that. Why is that happening? So yeah, we basically found evidence for that being an actual thing. It's not just like what's it called? Like a frame of thought. It's not just like a theory. It's like, it's real.
It's real, yeah. Yeah, most men struggle with their mental health, especially because of the suppression. You know?
And I think also what plays a big part in is in our Latino culture, so it's not with like our parents, older generation, no one talks about it. No one wants to talk about anything. And if you talk about it, then you need to go and clean because you're bored and your thoughts are getting to your head. So it's always like ignored and no one wants to pay attention to you. So why would you even want to talk about it?
You know, in our culture, I think that we just don't have the mental or capacity to deal with heavy events that are traumatic, you know?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of support with women in general, and that's just from what I've seen in my life, so it could be completely wrong. But like if my mom's too stressed, like she'll just hop on the phone, or she'll go to like a friend's house, or she'll go get a haircut even, like because she knows there's people to talk to, right? But if my dad is stressed or any of my dad's friends are ever stressed, I don't know about it. Like it just, it's not talked about. And that's where that thing comes up. It's like, they'll tell you this gut wrenching thing because they want someone to care so bad. They want somebody to listen to them. But they don't want to seem like feminine. They don't want to seem weak. They don't want to seem like all of these negative traits that they tie to just expressing themselves, and they'll just shut it down immediately. It's like, I don't want to talk about that.
That's like, no llores, los hombres no lloran.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how we were raised.
And it's tough because, at least from what I've seen from going to college with kids that were raised like that, it comes back up in relationships. So I'm just starting to figure out how relationships work in general. So I don't have a whole bunch of room to talk about this, but things that I refuse to have dealt with are coming up with relationships with people that I actually care about. And so basically no stone will go unturned. Like things are going to come up regardless. Yeah. There's always an effect. Even it like that one lie that you said a long time ago that like still rings around with you and nobody knew about it. Like that still carries a little bit of weight to it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So.
And since your dad, he was born here, then went back to Mexico, and then he went to college here. So would you say he's like Americanized to an extent?
Yeah, he was like the pretty boy of his family. He was like, everyone wanted to talk to him. He was awesome. But I think he adjusted better than everyone because the family made the move whenever he was so young. Yeah. He was like 13, 14 years old. He went to the U.S. So if I moved somewhere whenever I was 13 versus I moved somewhere now, like it would be way harder for me to get adjusted to that kind of stuff. And that's what my parents did. My grandparents did. My grandparents never learned like English properly. But my dad picked it up super quick because he was 13, right?
Yeah, he was so young.
So
how was it like growing up with him, like when it would come to like your emotions, since he kind of had both that experience of growing up in Mexico, but then being educated and going to school out here? Did you see?
Yeah, I I think with emotions in general, with my dad, it followed a lot of the machismo stuff. I would cry like as a kid, and it's like do you want me to give you something to cry about? Like I got that one a lot. And like I said, I respect my dad a lot. Like this isn't a dig on him or anything. But there was definitely like cultural differences, and I don't want to have been raised with these kids that like throw temper tantrums like in the grocery store, and they're like, Michael, like we talked about, like I didn't want to have to be raised like that either. Low key, I feel like you can tell the kids that got spanked as a kid. Just like respectful.
No, they're so respectful, right? They know.
Yeah, because
I got spanked too. It's like one look and you already know you better act right.
Yeah, mess around and find out.
Yeah.
And some people just didn't know. Like it's like, I don't want to go for one group, but like a lot of my white friends at Pepperdine, like they never gotten put in their place properly.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
Like if you disrespect, and it's a big thing for me. It's like, just don't disrespect your parents. Like you can go through your entire life and not disrespect them. You can disagree with them. Just don't disrespect your parents, right? And then these people hop on the calls with their parents and be like, why haven't you given me money yet? It's like, your dad needs to go over there and just like put you in your place. Like I don't understand where the lack of respect is coming from.
Yeah, I've seen that as well with different cultures.
So I'm glad I was raised the way that I was. I don't know, and I know my parents were doing the best that they could. So I can't.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
And I'm gonna have to do that at some point as well. So I have a lot of respect for them, and like I think they did a very good job. But yeah, they did the best with what they knew and what they were seeing around them.
How's your Spanish?
It goes away whenever I'm not in Costa Rica, and then it comes back whenever I am in Costa Rica. It takes me like 2 or 3 days to get back into it.
How often do you go to Costa Rica?
We go like once a year. We go for a month.
Oh, wow. That's
amazing.
Yeah.
For the summertime?
For the summer, yeah, which is like rainy season for them, because there's not actual like seasons.
Oh, yeah. When I went, it was rainy season.
Yeah. So we'll go and just visit. There's family everywhere. But we'll go and visit in the city, and we'll say hi to like a new person every day, and then we'll go to the rainforest. And my uncle has like a farm out there, and then we'll go to the beach, and we have family that lives on the beach, and then we'll go back to the city. Like there's so much to do.
Does any of your mom family live here in the United
Just
States?
one. So my mom's sister, my tia Monica, she lived in Texas as well. Her story is crazy. She married a Cuban man who gained his United States citizenship during the Cold War because communism was a big thing, and they just wanted as many people to turn away from communism. But they lived with us, like not with us, like close to us in Texas, like a 20-minute drive for almost our entire life. And then my uncle got cancer. They operated on him. He's completely fine now. But the medical bills were so much, and my aunt's a teacher as well. They moved to Virginia. So the teacher pay is like higher. The benefits are way better. And they're all doing fine, but yeah, we don't see them nearly as much as we used to. We'll try and like schedule things so that we're in Costa Rica whenever they're in Costa Rica. We've done like Thanksgiving together. We've done Christmas together at some points. But yeah, it's weird. That was one of the biggest things for my mom. She was like, at some point, I just want to go back. I want to go back to Costa Rica.
I mean, she has you guys, but it's different.
Yeah.
That's how my mom is.
Yeah, and so she wanted to make the move back for the longest. And then she told me that one day she just had peace with him. She's like, I think this is where I'm supposed to be. Like this is my home. And so we still visit. We visit for a long time, like every single year. Non-consecutively, I probably lived like 2.5, 3 years in Costa Rica, just like broken into months. But yeah.
And how about Mexico? Do you guys go often?
We don't go a ton because my dad's family mainly lives like this side of the border. Yeah. But like 30 minutes away. I don't know if y'all have ever been to like McAllen or Mission, Texas, but it's basically Mexico with like American infrastructure.
I've only been to Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically like, it's exactly like Mexico, but just with American infrastructure. We cross the border, but like right on that border, there's so much violence it's just scary. You have like that feeling whenever you go through like a bad neighborhood. You're like, I don't want to be like here, and there's like trucks that have like guns mounted on the back.
Yeah, that's their military.
Yeah,
police
exactly.
forces. I feel like when we cross the border, we're like, hey, and
Yeah.
that's all we see.
Yeah, I don't know.
do it so often. Especially the TJ.
Yeah, we
The
go to
TJ San Diego border,
Yeah.
San Isidro.
Tijuana is scary. All my white friends want to go to TJ all the time.
For what?
I'm like, dude,
For
no,
what?
you don't. You do not want to go there.
Yeah, no, for what?
Yeah. We visit a lot because my dad still has old friends, and so we'll go visit for like a day. We don't really stay in Mexico for longer than that. We have taken like trips to like Mexico City, like vacation trips and stuff like that. Cozumel was very fun as well.
Oh wow, I've been wanting to go there.
'Cause they have cenotes.
Cenotes, yeah, they're beautiful.
Super cool.
That's been on my list.
But all the family, like all the main reasons to go to Mexico are in the United States now. So
Yeah.
it doesn't make a whole bunch of sense.
I mean, that's kind of like same for me. I'm the youngest of 9, and like unless I'm going to go visit like Mexico City or
Like
Cancun
vacation.
or
But now,
I will
like, where
go,
your
but I
family's
won't
from, 'cause,
go.
like, no one's
I
there.
don't have any family over there.
Yeah.
I mean, so I totally get where your dad's coming from,
Yeah.
you know? So what do you think has been your driving force for like success?
It's actually tough because so I have my music scholarship, which means I did music all through high school. And I was in band, and I was kind of like a little band psychologist, therapist. My favorite days were the days where I could like just talk to people about their problems. I felt like I was very good at listening and just like offering advice in the form of questions to get them to like figure out what they wanted to do. Those were my favorite days that I could just talk to people. And then I realized that like that's a profession of its own. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a therapist. And then I went to college, and it was fun, and that was still my plan for a long time, but it didn't feel like solid. Like I didn't have the drive. I didn't have I had discipline, so I could get up and do the same thing every day. But I didn't have the drive to want to be like the greatest therapist in therapist history or whatever. But one summer I came back home. I needed to get a job because I had a speeding ticket. And so I got a job. My dad gave me a business book. It was just the Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's like a very popular book. I read it, cover to cover, and I just started thinking like a little more, like using my brain. I was like, let's start reading more. Maybe reading has something to it. And so I read a lot of personality books, like how to make friends, how to talk to people, how to like all these kinds of things. And then business books as well, picking up more like what is money? What does that look like? And basically every book says like, close the book and go buy a course. Like, I don't know enough. This book is going to be old. So, I didn't want to have a business. I really didn't. I just wanted to like invest in something, but you can't invest in something if you don't have any money. The quickest way to get money is to have a business.
Yeah.
So I started a business, and it was just, it was immediate, I guess. I was like, it felt like almost like a video game, where you just have that rush. You just want to sit there and do it all day.
Yeah.
Like you just want to, and then whenever you want to like upgrade all of your stuff, you want to like find new people, like see what other people are doing, make all those connections. Like it just makes sense. I never got tired of it. And it gave me more peace because I am like the firstborn son, like I said. And so I know that one day, like historically speaking, like I'm going to have to take care of the family, right? And so I want to like make sure I get finances in order before I can start like changing the world in different ways, right? And so we figured out a business. A lot of people don't tell you that it's just failure for like a long time. And then something clicks, and then it just works. But it was literally just a book, which is crazy. Because if I ever get the chance to meet Robert Kiyosaki, I want to tell him, it was like, your book changed my life.
Maybe he'll watch the podcast.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Want to come on?
I actually don't enjoy reading too much anymore, which is super weird. I'd rather just like watch YouTube videos and like fast forward them a bunch. But that's just because I'm in the technical kind of stuff, not really
And
the
time
mindset.
is money. You gotta get straight to the point.
Yeah. But yeah, I got the discipline from COVID, which is weird. Everyone had different COVID experiences, but in Texas, it's just open country. Like my phone got boring after a month. Video games got boring after 2 months. And so I just had to like figure out what I actually wanted to do. I was like, okay, all I have right now is music, fitness, and homework. So like if we can devote 3 hours a day to those 3 things, like that'll at least start a basis. And so I made sure every day I did those things. And then it just felt like brushing your teeth. It's like you brush your teeth in the morning, you don't really think about it.
Yeah.
Like I go for a run, I don't really think about it. So like applying that into business, because there's definitely days where you don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
That comes for anything in general. There's days that you just don't want to. If you figure out to just like do it as easily as you brush your teeth in the morning, like just get it done. Even if you're just going through the motions, like just get that day's work done. Then you've at least done something that day.
I need to get into that mindset.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's consistency, right? You
And
just keep
building that
doing it, even
routine.
on the days you don't want to do it. You do it. So, what have you learned working with therapists?
They're all crazy.
No, there's actually some. I took a shot at real estate agents because they're not super fun people to talk to. But you'd be surprised with some therapists. You're like, how'd you get your license, dude?
Why?
They're just like, they talk to you like on the phone and they're just like mean. There's some people that you talk to and you're like, this is a mean person. Like, I don't want to talk to this person.
Feel
They're
that
mean.
energy, like, right away.
And you're like, to be a therapist and be like a mean, it's like, how do you talk to people?
That's the problem. They talk to people.
Yeah.
You know?
But for the most part, I have a tremendous amount of respect for these people. A lot of businesses are basically the same thing. You're just trying to figure out how to make like your idea work, and take that vision and just keep going as far as you can. And there's a lot of therapists that are super on board for that. Just want to like help as many people possible. And as soon as their calendar's booked, like let's find more people like to get their calendar booked. Just keep going and going. And like, that's how I operate my business. I think just because of how many I've interacted with and the turn that my life has taken, I wouldn't want to pursue therapy anymore. Because I feel like I'm getting the same thing out of the business that I'm running right now. Where I feel like I have a genuine impact on people. Like I'm making actual connections. I'm actually changing lives. But yeah, I still enjoy psychology a ton. And like I was saying a little earlier, I want to go to grad school. Like I still want to pursue it. I love the research aspect of stuff. Getting to present at the APA and the National Latino Psychological Association, finding out tests to help out therapists that make actual sense. That stuff is like, it's super fun. Maybe sales has taken out the fun of like talking to people a little bit, but yeah, I'm still like very much invested into everything that I do. And if you can have peace in knowing that like this is actually what I want to do, you have way more ferocity. I haven't gotten like burnt out in general. I know that's something a lot of people deal with, but I don't struggle with it. I wake up and there's things to do, and then I get them done. Yeah.
But going back to the therapist, sometimes there's compassion fatigue and compassion burnout.
Yeah.
Where you actually are compassionate in session with your client, but just for everyone else, you just don't have room for it,
right.
You know? And I think that's where maybe the other therapists are not nice.
Sure.
I think that's where they're coming from.
Yeah. And I can relate semi in the form of sales, which is what I was kind of ending on. You talk to like 100 people a day and you are trying to get them to do the same thing, and you want to seem just as genuine to all of them.
That's impossible.
And so a lot of times you can be a little more cold when it comes to business stuff because you can convince yourself that it's just about money, right? But it's not. It's like, it's a dream. This is what you actually want to do. And so being able to go like to every single person, and then some of them are going to be nasty and you're going to get the worst remarks of your life. And then some of them are going to be okay, and it's going to like bring something back. Like, maybe let's do this again tomorrow. Like you have confidence again. There's so much variety that like learning how to distance yourself from it a little bit. At least that's been my experience with sales. It's like, we're going to go talk to these people, but Danny isn't talking to these people. Danny's idea is talking to these people. It doesn't affect me as a person, because I can like hang it up at the door and go like talk to my family and call my parents and be the same person. But whenever I need to, like, let's put it back on. It's like, this is the person I need to be right now.
Great. So you also do a little bit of mentorship, right? What got you into kind of mentoring kids?
I would say the first experience that I had with it in general was, again, in band. I was like the leader, and I was in charge of like 20 high schoolers. And from the year before, where everything was a mess, to getting like this camaraderie, getting these people to like actually want to be better together. That was the first time where I was like, this is awesome. Like, working with people is actually super fun. And then in college, I was an RA, which is resident advisor. I was just in charge of one of the freshman housing dorms, which meant I was in charge of like 45 boys that were like 18-year-olds. So like,
the dorms aren't co-ed?
No.
Oh,
no, 45.
Christian school.
Yeah. Well, no, they're co-ed after freshman year.
Oh, okay.
But for freshmen, they just have houses, like big houses.
Oh, nice.
And so it was like 45 guys, and it was a lot. But every single one of them had their own aspiration. They're all going to college for their own reason.
Yeah.
And so I think respect is something that I learned to earn. Like, I set out to earn the respect of 45 different guys. And I hung out with all of them. I planned with them. I talked with them super late. We had events. We did all this kind of fun stuff. And like, slowly I just got to figure out where these people are, where they want to be, and how to get there, which is what mentorship, I suppose, is. It's weird like saying it out loud, because if you would have asked me where I wanted to be like 3 years ago, I'd say something completely different. But I think the ability to get people to take that first step is what really matters. A lot of it, there's this thing called information fatigue, I think, where a lot of business owners will like pretend to be business owners. They'll have their website, they'll have like everything set up, and they don't have a single client. And they're like putting a ton of money into it, but they're not actually doing anything. And I think that's very similar to how a lot of people operate in their lives. Like, they have all these great ideas and these great plans, but they're not doing anything about it. And if they are, it's like not enough. Like, going to the gym, I have a lot of friends who, like, they're like, this year's my year. Like, we're going to get in shape. And then they go to the gym for like 30 minutes, and then the next day they don't want to, and then they're done. Like, they're like, oh, I really want to get back into it. And so like, they go to the gym again for like a day or two, and they're like, oh, I'm so sore and I have so much to do. It's like, what do you actually want to do? Because it seems like what you really want to do is look the same. Like, based off of your actions. If I was an alien and I didn't know what thoughts were, and I just saw you by your actions, like, I would think that you enjoy being the way that you are. So like, I think the big idea with mentorship is like, let's take the right actions. Let's figure out where we want to go. It's going to change, but like, let's do something about it.
Yeah. I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
that
that's
you're
great.
doing that. How do you find the time to do all these things? To
Yeah,
be a
'cause sounds like you
senior,
have a lot
to
going
do
on.
research, to
Barely have time to breathe.
have a mentorship, to have a business, have a partner. How do you find time?
I think I'm, at least like as of 3 years ago, I was pretty lazy in general. And that isn't to say like how old people say that young people are lazy. Like, I didn't want to actually do anything. Like, there were a lot of cool ideas and stuff like that, but I actually didn't feel like doing anything. And so that's why I say it's lazy. And laziness isn't necessarily even a bad thing. I would even still identify with a lot of like lazy qualities. But I just wasn't really striving for anything in particular. But what I learned was, what has priority over laziness is responsibility. That's just been like a common theme in my life. So like, I won't turn in assignments late, but I'm lazy enough to not do them until last minute, right? Like, I'll procrastinate on everything. But if something needs to get done, I'll get it done. And so my solution that I've just been trying for a couple of years while I'm young and have way too much energy, is just like, let's fill up our entire plate. That way there isn't an inch of the day that's filled with laziness. Like we have something to do, and once that's done, we have something else to do. And then once that's done, we have something else to do. Which is weird because most people in that position would be like in the burnout train, right? But I have such intense focus on things that I do that it gives me way more of like a good feeling, I guess, than just being on my phone or like watching TV or whatever. I understand like taking a day to rest. I think rest is super important. But I think scheduling it is like a little more important. It with all these dreams that like people have in general, and with all the experiences out there in general, it doesn't really make sense to waste the day doing things that you don't really actually want to do. Yeah. It's like what I was talking about with mentoring. Like if I was an alien and I could only see people's actions, and that was the only thing that made me determine like what they wanted to do with their life. Like a lot of people would want to be people that scroll on their phone, like, because it's easy, right? Or like a lot of people would like to just buy things, or a lot of people would just like easy things. But I had a great childhood, and my parents were great. But now I'm trying to do big things, and big things require work. And I have no problem working hard. So I don't know. It was the mindset is like, I think an uncommon one. But I've just been developing it for the past like 4 years. And I think what helps with that too is like being able to look at other people and say like, it's so easy to like cast stones whenever you have your own stuff to worry about, basically. And so being able to just take a step back and be like, you know, I'm saying he's not doing anything, but I'm not doing anything either. To like, okay, let's put like our actions where our words are, and like, let's start doing stuff. But that isn't what it looks like for everybody. And I completely understand that. Some people need to just focus on one thing. And that doesn't work for me, because I just get lazy and I will put it off until the very last second.
I feel like I can totally relate with what you're saying, because I feel like for me, it's like one goal after another goal after another goal after another goal. And I'm just constantly like moving on to the next thing, to the next thing. But the amount of anxiety that I have, it doesn't stop me. Like my anxiety, it won't stop me, even though I'm shaking in my boots. I will still do it. I will still move forward, but I have so much anxiety. Mm-hmm. How much anxiety do you have?
So back in high school, I got very into like anxiety research in general, which is like super weird. I have never told anybody about this. But I thought it was interesting because a lot of my friends say that they had anxiety. I was like, what does that even mean? Like, what does that look like? And so I did a lot of research, and I found different ways to handle it in general. There's even been new studies that kind of solidify this idea that I've adopted. It's like people that have no stress tend to live longer than people that are highly stressed. But people that have high stress and view stress as a good thing live longer than the people with no stress. So it's like, what is your perspective on it? It's going to happen. You're going to have moments where like your heartbeat increases and you start breathing a little quicker and you have that like rush. Well, it's like
adrenaline.
Yeah. Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, even though I'm anxious all the time, it doesn't affect me. Like, I just feel like I just have to keep going, because I'm either like on a streak or everything's like aligning for me, and we just got to keep moving forward, you know? So
I almost chase that sometimes. I think that's like part of the response to my last question. Like, how do I not have burnout? Maybe it's just because I'm anxious. Like, there's so many things to do.
That's the thing, for sure.
That's true.
There's so many things to do, but I see it as a good thing. And so it's like, I have all of this, like, let's just call it like energy. Like, I have all this energy towards different places. And the reason I feel so strongly towards them is because that's actually what I want to do. So I feel the responsibility, I feel the stress, but I can redirect it, basically.
Yeah.
I understood at some point that like I'm going to get stressed out regardless. It isn't like you turn like 40 and then stress is done.
Yeah,
You
it's a
can
lifelong
stop
thing.
being stressed by doing like very easy things your entire life. But you're going to have moments. And so it's like, let's find the fix. Like it was another one of those things, right? There's a problem. Like I want to be at a place where that doesn't affect me. Let's do actions to figure it out. So I watched plenty of videos. I like read books. It's like, what is anxiety? What actually happens to you physically? What happens to you mentally? How can it be changed into something good, right? So it was just a problem, and I had to figure it out. And it's the same thing where I just kind of haven't looked back. Sometimes in general, like life-wise, you just have to make a kind of bold choice, and just stick with it, even if you know it's probably not right. I feel like there's a bit of like delusional confidence that you have to throw in with. I know that's how it is with business, like hopping on sales calls and stuff like that. You're like, I don't even know what I'm talking about, but this is what I came up with, and we're just going to stick to it. We can reevaluate like whenever I'm 30 or whatever, but as of right now, stress is a good thing, and I can't get enough of it, basically. So
No, I agree.
Yeah.
When channeled in the correct way, when it's not crippling. I mean, some people do have crippling anxiety, but when it's not crippling, it will push you forward. And that's the type of anxiety that I have. I have a ton of anxiety, but it only pushes me forward. So it's a great thing, especially when you're young.
Yes. Yeah. Everyone, like if you pay attention to what older people say, they're like, oh, you're young and have energy. And you never feel like you do. But like it is, I guess it's true, right? Because they'll see you like being tired and they'll be like, oh, whenever I was your age, I'd be running around or whatever.
I was building a house.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're like, okay, like let's start building houses then. And so it's like, if they say that you have all this energy, like let's pretend and act like we have all this energy. And then you typically do. Like it doesn't feel like too hard of a thing. I enjoy like running, which isn't something that you can like do as freely as you get older. But you have energy, and it's like a fun thing to do. So I don't know. Listening to old people is underrated.
I agree with that. Do you have, for your last words, any advice or tips you want to give out to people who are watching you and could relate to your story or are looking at you as inspiration and as a role model?
If I had to boil my entire thought process down into one thing, I guess it would be problems are a part of living. There's problems all the time. There's always going to be problems. And it's what you choose to do about them that either keeps you where you are or gets you to where you want to be. If stress is a problem, what are you going to do about it? Like, are you going to go to a therapist? Like, are you going to do research about it? Are you going to take steps to try and figure it out? Or do you like where you are so much that you're just going to stay there? It's the same thing with business. It's like, I have problems in my business right now. I'm always going to have problems in my business. But like what I choose to do about them is either going to keep me where I am or move me forward. So like, for example, I suck at sales. And so I took a position in one of my friend's companies that has me doing way more sales. Because the best experience is to just go through it.
Yeah.
But even like spiritually, if you feel not at peace with where you are, what are you going to do about it? I think if I had to put it all into like one overarching category, that would be it.
That was great. Thank you so much.
What would you tell your younger self?
Oh,
This Danny to your younger
I'm
self.
not that old, am I?
You're like 22. 23. That you wish you knew now.
I wish I would have started trying harder. I think I was gifted a lot, and that gave me a lot of opportunities to be lazy. There wasn't any reason for me to apply myself. I got good grades and did good on the SAT, but not because I tried, which is like, it seems like pretentious to say. But that kind of stuff came easy to me. And so it's like, how much further could I have been ahead if I would have actually done something? And I guess that's what it all boils back down to. It's like actions. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life right now? Because it looks like you want to just play video games for the rest of your life. That's what I would say. Like, if I had to go based off your actions, you just want to, play video games and do nothing. So it's like, analyze what you're doing. Be pretty hard on yourself. You're allowed to be a little hard on yourself sometimes if it means that you get to refocus yourself in the right direction. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here,
Yeah,
Danny.
it's great.
We appreciate
Thank you.
you. You're doing amazing things.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for the research you do for the community.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to you, both of y'all. Y'all have
Thank
been amazing
you.
hosts.
Yay!
Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe, add, and like.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Stay tuned also for the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Say bye, Danny.
Bye, everyone.